So our next presentation will be Professor Sharman Hartel from Monash University School of Management and Associate Professor Anna Krasminska from Macquarie University's Department of Management. They'll pop on their screen now, and Sharman and Anna are here to share the results of the first large-scale global quantitative study in the area of autism employment. The purpose of this global study, not an easy feat, was to investigate the challenges, learnings and best practices organisations have in sustaining and scaling skilled autism employment. It's not just important, this is critical to how we can create systems-wide change. I can't wait to hear more about it, and without further ado, I'll throw to Anna and Sharman, whoever will speak off first.
Thanks, Andrew. So we were lucky enough to have almost 170 individuals from 33 organizations, 12 countries, 5 continents that have responded to our survey. This is comprised of different types of organizations, so large multinational corporations, governments, social enterprises, and other types of organizations, nonprofits. We made sure that we had what we call a 360-degree view. So we asked not just the autistic individuals, but also their co-workers, supervisors, HR managers, and executive or program directors of the Autism Employment Program if they had such a program in their organization. We have a little bit of myth busting, and of course, please be mindful that there's a very long report that we've done in a very detailed report because there are so many interesting findings coming from this study. And we're just going to be able to really highlight a few aspects. And I invite everybody to go to the website, the ACRC website, which features the full study, but also the executive report and the study highlights. So I'll pass on to Sharman for the implications for future research.
All people have their individual differences. They have individuals that are on the spectrum also have other unique characteristics to them. If we looked at the difference between full-time or part-time employees, we see that the autistic employees that are full-time are more secure and satisfied than those that are part-time. When we were looking at things like caregiving roles, that autistic individuals with caregiving roles, they needed, as would be the case for their neurotypical counterparts, more support related to those caregiving activities. So it's important not to forget about the other characteristics that make up an individual. An individual is not just, let's say, their autism, but they have other characteristics in their life, individual differences. And these differences, like with also neurotypicals, are important. We do think about, individuals that have caregiving responsibilities. We do think about essentially sort of differences or preferences for the work environment. So we need to take these into account. The other thing is that we saw that autistic employees report to be more satisfied with the work environment as well as various organizational practices and adjustments when they were female, or when they were disclosed, or when they had no primary caregiving responsibilities, or when they required less than substantial support. Again, pointing out this need to take into consideration what we call intersectionality, the intersection of being on the spectrum with other types of characteristics or ways that people differ. So this is a really important thing. And I think the idea with a disclosure is an important one because it suggests that potentially that there's in disclosing, as we find with other populations, that disclosure can, for one, let one feel more authentic and also included and respected in the workplace, but potentially also feel that one is able to potentially get more of the workplace support that is needed to perform well. And again, I mentioned already the primary caregiving responsibilities, and then of course this idea about how much support a person might need in the workplace. I think it's worth noting those last 2 points just briefly. Is in our sample, social enterprises were reported as having the most satisfied and secure employees, and after social enterprises, private sector businesses, and those that actually were performing more in the bottom levels were nonprofit and government education sector. So this also suggests that we have a lot to learn from how social enterprises in this space, their practices. They've started the autism employment movement, learned a great deal there, and there's a lot of things that we could learn by looking at the practices of social enterprises. We do need to look a bit more about what's happening in the nonprofit and government education sector to try to understand what's happening in this space, that the sense of satisfaction and security is lower than the other types of businesses. And then another finding in our study that certainly warrants more research is compared to the other geographical regions that our participants came from, autistic employees employees in Australia and New Zealand were the least satisfied and secure in their role. So this certainly requires, more looking into, and potentially suggests that there's more work to be done here in raising awareness and introducing practices in this area. We'll just summarize what's most helpful in the workplace. So I think here again is, if you look at this intersectionality idea about, men and women, just on that dimension alone, there's considerable differences if you look at the percentages or what helped the majority of men versus women. For women, the majority said that the most helpful things, and if you look at, you can see the percentages there, were getting instructions in writing, work activities that have direct and clear information about their performance, support like a buddy mentor, and customized job design to suit skills and interests. Whereas for men, the only sort of practice that was for the majority of men was seen as being helpful was activities that have direct and clear information about their performance. In addition to the comments that Anna made about some of the myth busting that we've had, the other really important finding from this is that we really need to look at the individual differences in employees, understand that the differences between men and women will be different, part-time and full-time employees, whether they have caregiving or not caregiving responsibilities, employees that differ in how much support that they might need in the workplace. We need to be able to take these things into account in getting a better understanding of how we can best match our employment practices to the needs of the entire population, inclusive of autistic people. And so we'll end on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charmin.
Thank you both. That was absolutely terrific. Thank you. That was super interesting.